Okay, morning everybody. Welcome to a class on absolute phrases. Now, this is something you might not have heard of. I certainly hadn't for a large part of my life. I had no idea what an absolute phrase was. It was maybe 5 or 10 years ago, probably 5 years ago, that I first came across them. And I was shocked that nobody had taught me what an absolute phrase was, because it's really useful information. All writers use absolute phrases sometimes, whether they know it or not, and it's something that really adds colour and adds variety to your writing and to your speaking. And so please do use these guys. You can use them, all the time, and writers do use them very often. Now, they're useful to know about for punctuation, because these guys always have commas. I have never seen a book where the writer or the editor or the proofreader forgets to put a comma in with an absolute phrase. They always do. These are, really strictly always with commas. Okay, so what is an absolute phrase? Let's start at the beginning. It's a noun phrase that functions adverbially. You might think, well, how can a noun phrase function as an adverb? Well, I hope you remember from the section on nouns that we did look at nouns that function as adjectives, and we did look at nouns that function as adverbs. And so, for example, when you say tomorrow or yesterday, you might think of tomorrow and yesterday as things, and sometimes they can be, because they could be the subject of the verb. Today is a lovely day, and it really is a lovely day. So they might be the subject of the verb, like today is. But they might not be, and they usually aren't. They usually tell you when the verb happened. Yeah, like I saw him today, or I didn't see him yesterday. And so in that sense, they tell you when the verb happened, and they're adverbial. So nouns can function adverbially, and that's exactly what the absolute phrase does. Now, the most common type, if we're going to split them up into different types, the most common type of absolute phrase is where you just see noun and participle. And I want to make it very clear that you do not see the verb to be, like is or are or was or were. Yet you do not see these words between the noun and the participle. And this is important, because if you say his eyes, subject, verb, are, burning, and that's the main verb, this is an auxiliary verb, that's the main verb, it's not a gerund. Yeah, you couldn't swap it round. You couldn't say burning are his eyes, or okay, maybe in poetry you could, but we don't speak like that. We don't put the verb first and then say burning are his eyes, not usually. So we know that that's a verb and that's a subject. But when you take out the are and just put his eyes burn,